everyone. This is Sydney and Tatum back with the Welcome Table. Thank you for tuning in. Today we have Dr. Douglas M. Haynes here. He's UCI's Vice Chancellor for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. As UCI's Chief Diversity Officer, he oversees the Office of Inclusive Excellence and leads UCI's conscious effort to become a global example for inclusive excellence. And we're so happy to be talking to him today. How are you?
I am very well. Thank you so much for asking. I hope you both are safe and enjoying your day, and you've gotten a little sunshine today.
Yes, that's right. It's been quite sunny today, which I'm grateful for. It's always nice to have a nice day, especially when you're inside quarantining. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Right. That's what it's called. Okay.
Yeah. Exactly. So before we begin the interview, we're going to do a little show and tell, and I'm going to go this week. So this is my interview item, I guess, so to speak. Like it's I don't even know what this is called, but this is from Seattle.
Yeah, the Space Needle.
Yes, the Space Needle from Seattle.
Yeah.
And I've only been to Seattle once. I haven't really traveled hardly at all, but there's so many places I want to go within the US, outside of the US, and Seattle is one of the places that I happen to go. I had the privilege of going. So yeah, I loved it. Despite the weather being a little bit rainy, I just love like that city feel. People are really great. The Black community over there is awesome. So I really, really liked Seattle. So this is my little token of from when I went.
Oh, very nice. I'm going to do something that sort of is more familiar, but it's my book.
Oh,
see. Yay.
Oh, nice.
But, the reason why I want to show it, it's kind of bleeding out with my background. But I often think about when I was when I was 18 and entering college, or even when I was in my early 20s when I was in graduate school, I kind of had an idea that, gee, I sure would like to write a book about something. And, when I finished this book and it came out in 2017, I looked back and said, gee whiz, this started a long time ago, but I've grown while I've been here, right? And I've traveled throughout the world to do the research. And so now it's in a compact little book. And, it's something I'm quite proud of.
Yeah, that is awesome. Yeah. How long did it take you to research and do all the things for that book?
Well, it's interesting because this is my second one. And so it took about, I would say 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Well, remember, as a faculty member, you're doing teaching, you're doing research, you're doing service. And, I had a family that grew up, right? And so it took 10 years, in part because as I was thinking about it and doing the research, it was changing, right? Yeah. So you start with one idea and then you go in the archive and you go, oh God, that's not what I thought. And then you try to make sense of it.
Right. And then for our audience, can you explain a little bit about what your book is about?
Well, sure. So there's two questions. And so I'm trained as a historian of modern Europe, very unusual for an African-American, but there's a reason for that. But there's two questions that I try to answer. The one question is, how was it possible for the United Kingdom with 50 million people to have enough doctors to fight on the home front and on the war front during World War I and World War II? So that's question one. And then the other question is related, is how is it possible that a country with 50 million people could have a comprehensive universal healthcare system with a very small number of doctors? And so it took me 10 years to figure that answer out. I'm kind of slow.
But they are.
But what happened, what I show in this book is how the medical profession was very much a part of the British Empire. And so in the 19th century, they produced too many doctors within the United Kingdom, and that excess supply went out to the empire, right? To work, to practice, to serve in the imperial services, to serve in the army, mainly male and mainly white. Meanwhile, the supply of doctors was very steady in the United Kingdom, right? In World War II and World War I, they looked to doctors in the empire to help the mother country, right?
Mm-hmm.
That experience set the groundwork for the National Healthcare Service, in that about 30% of doctors in the National Healthcare Service are trained in the former empire.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why when you go, for example, to a hospital in urban or rural England, you will find more than likely someone who was trained in India or Pakistan, possibly Egypt, and possibly even a country in sub-Saharan Africa. And it's actually true in the United States as well. So about 30% of doctors in the United States were trained in another country.
Okay, that's interesting.
And so when you go to different hospitals, you kind of experience that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sure.
Why is that though? Why are they training in different countries? Is there a reason for that?
Well, I mean, part of it shows the expansion of Western medicine, right? So at first you would have, white male doctors who would go out to the empire to practice medicine in the army, in the navy, and the imperial services, and then come home.
Mm-hmm.
Then they established medical schools where they train residents of the colonies in Western medicine. And once the empire ended, they continued to produce doctors. And so those doctors were trained in the British way, and it was a way for them to connect with the United Kingdom.
Gotcha.
But their experience is very different.
Mm-hmm.
As you can imagine, in a predominantly white society, there often are people of color. And for that reason, their experience can be highly variable.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so it's been really interesting to discuss you creating this book through a lot of research and hard work, obviously. And today, we really want to know, we know that you're heavily involved in the creation of the Office of Inclusive Excellence. And we want to know, what were your goals, or what are the goals of the Office of Inclusive Excellence in your view?
Well, we want to transform UCI. That's we want to ensure that UCI is the nation's leading institution for inclusive excellence. And that means everyone expects an affirmative and supportive environment, that we look for talented people throughout communities, the state, the country, and the world. But we also create a powerful sense of belonging. It's not enough to expect equity for yourself if you don't think about it for other people. It's one thing to be diverse, but it's quite another to feel that you belong.
Right, exactly.
And so those are some of the principal aspirations of the office. And I think since it's been established in 2016, we've had a number of major achievements, but I must say the work still goes on.
Exactly, right. Yeah, I mean, so with your role specifically in the office, you said it was created in 2016, and that means you got appointed in 2016. So how would you describe your role, and what are some accomplishments that you said accomplishments, what are some that you're most proud of?
Right. Well, what's interesting is that originally I was appointed as vice provost. And so that means that my area of responsibility was pretty much the academic core. And so that would mean that I would sort of pay close attention to what's called accountability. So are we recruiting? Are we admitting? Are we educating? Are we graduating? Are we advancing our students, undergraduates, graduate students, and faculty and staff, right? in academic units. Fast forward to 2019, when I was appointed the inaugural Vice Chancellor of Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, it covers everything, right? The Irvine campus, the Orange campus, right? And I think, so I guess whatever accomplishments that I have is a product of working with a lot of different people. So one of my important and I think truly meaningful accomplishments is the Black Thriving Initiative.
Oh, right.
And that really is about, creating UCI as the nation's foremost destination for Black people to thrive. And that's never been done before.
Yeah, you must be so proud, so proud of that.
Well, I'm encouraged and I'm proud because we're getting a lot of momentum. We still have a long way to go in terms of raising awareness, understanding where we're working well and where we're not working so well. But the key thing is that we want to be that beacon, right? That you can do this.
Right.
That it's not impossible, that it's not illegal, right? For Black people to thrive in higher education in this state or country.
Yeah.
It seems like it's a battle for so many people, but it shouldn't be. And I think that having the Black Thriving Initiative is a way to normalize it and even out the playing field.
And so we sort of, in some sense, before this, we launched about 5 years ago, the Latinx Thriving Initiative, where the campus really thought about, do we want to become a federally designated Hispanic serving institution? And we, after a year long of study, we said, absolutely, right? And that would really lead to very significant efforts to create the campus and grow the campus in a way that serves all of our students and staff, right, and communities. Thereafter, we became a federally designated Asian American, Native American, Pacific Islander serving institution, right? And so I'm mentioning that just to point out that, it's part of a comprehensive commitment to inclusive excellence, right? And Black thriving is not at the expense of any other group.
Right, that's important. That's important to know for sure.
I think that's a conversation that comes up a lot within, when ideas of inclusion come up in conversation, it's like, it's not like a situation where when one person gets something because they've been, robbed of it their entire lives, it doesn't mean that somebody else is getting less.
Exactly.
It's just to create an equitable plane so that everybody can thrive equally.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And, and I think it's a learning process, right? So when we think of Black thriving, we also have to think about intersectional identity. So when we speak of Black thriving, we're speaking of Black women thriving, Black men thriving, Black gay people thriving, Black transgender people thriving, Black immigrants thriving, right? And so when you can think about the many identities we have, that Black thriving is a way to really affirm people.
Exactly. And we were going to ask you a question later on about this same exact topic. So it's funny that
I got ahead of myself. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. But, going off of the UCI Black Thriving Initiative, along with the definition of DEI, which is, diversity, equity, and inclusion, why is that? I mean, I guess you already said it, but why is that so important, that the value of DEI, like on a university campus, why is it important for everyone to understand why it must be implemented successfully?
Well, I mean, and partly it's because a university is about maximizing human potential, right? And we know that only happens when we're purposeful, right? And so you can't maximize human potential if people don't experience equity, if they don't experience a supportive and affirmative environment in which to grow personally and professionally, right? You can't be maximize a people's potential if you're not thinking broadly about human talent,
Exactly.
right? You really can't maximize human potential if people don't feel they belong,
Right.
that they can bring their whole self, that they're valued, that they can make contributions. And so often when folks think about diversity, equity, inclusion, it's not uncommon for folks to think, well, that's the Inclusive Excellence Office. But what we expect is that we have a whole curriculum that's really designed to help all members of the UCI community learn what inclusive excellence means, right? So it's everybody's responsibility.
Right. It's everyone's responsibility. I love that.
Yeah, and that kind of takes away the possibility of tokenization too, because I feel like that's a big because it could seem that diversity,
right,
but
right.
It's not, you know, like it takes so much more than that.
Exactly.
And I think, you know, the Office of Inclusive Excellence is really doing that work. And that kind of leads us to our next topic, actually. So this year has been marked by a lot of societal change and movement with anti-Black violence and the resurgence of white supremacist ideology, as we all know, but also the widespread support of Black Lives Matter. And just how many university, corporate, and nonprofit leaders have really shown up for the cause. And we want to know, how has the Office of Inclusive Excellence adjusted to all of these societal movements that we've been seeing and embraced them in a way?
Well, a very perceptive question and comment. And I think that it's a combination of change and continuity. And so we launched our Inclusive Excellence Action Plan in January of 2019, or was it 2020? 2020. And the focus is on community thriving and wellness. Now, at the time, you know, we spent about a year listening and consulting to develop that. But when COVID hit, combined with the brutal killing of George Floyd, those pillars mattered a lot more.
Yes, absolutely.
That part of how the campus has responded is that, in some sense, these major impacts has elevated the relevance of these pillars that matter to people. And, you know, from my vantage point, I think it's encouraging that people flooded into the streets to support Black Lives Matter and denounce police brutality, right? But that's just the start, right? Because it's not enough to simply denounce the police officer that killed George Floyd, or those doctors or those officers just stood by. It's part of a far more widespread system of racism, right? And for some folks, this was the first time that they get to see it, even though many Black people already know it, right?
Right, exactly.
And so the real challenge, it seems to me, is to help people become aware, equip themselves to know and understand how to confront anti-Blackness, because it's very, it can be subtle, implicit, and explicit in so many ways. But it only can be addressed if more people than Black people have to do it.
Exactly. If more people have that knowledge, and, you know, that conception of what anti-Blackness is, what it looks like, and that kind of goes into your role. So this is awesome conversation. Yeah, I just love talking about this kind of stuff, because as university students, we face this on a day-to-day basis. So yeah.
Right.
Awesome.
And I think one phrase that's really stuck with both of us during this time and within our work, and I'm sure your work, is that it's not enough to be not racist. You have to be actively anti-racist. And implementing that phrase into your life and really living it is what it really takes to actually create this equitable field.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and a safe, you know, I don't know if it's ever going to be truly safe for, you know, Black people, because we live in an anti-Black world and that's just the reality of the situation. But to create safe spaces within communities and camaraderie, I think that's necessary to be anti-racist.
Yes, 100%. And also to create tangible change, right? So yeah.
You know, I guess I would, I'm going to complicate what something you said. I would say that insisting that wherever we live and work is a space for Black people to thrive is arguably one of the most audacious ideas, right? Because I think it challenges anti-Blackness, that it recalibrates expectations, right? And so I think it's important to be anti-racist, but I also believe it's as important to want to build a world where Black people thrive.
Right, exactly. It's like rewriting that narrative. Like, not only are we going to be here, and not only do we deserve to be here, but we're also going to thrive as well. So that's important to know. Going off of that, with OIE, right? What is your hope for the future of the office, and what projects can we look forward to seeing in the future?
Well, one thing that I try to do is that I try to look long-term, short-term, and medium-term. And in the long term, I want to build an office that is very relevant to every member of the campus community. And I want to do that for folks who are here today and here tomorrow, but also for my successor, right? Because I believe in servant leadership that is about supporting people. And I'm a believer that organizations grow when you create the conditions for people with different talents have opportunities, right? But, you know, some medium-term goals are filling our cluster hire program for the Black thriving faculty cluster hires.
Okay.
So we just launched a call for the faculty in October. We received about 17 complete proposals that reflected 31 departments that involved 100 faculty preparing those proposals. And it's part of a series of actions that we describe as leverage our mission to advance understanding about the Black experience and drivers of well-being. And we want to grow our research and teaching capacity for that reason, right? Another major goal is to intensify student thriving at UCI, right? When we look at the 6-year and 4-year graduation rate, in many ways, our Black undergraduates are performing almost at parity when the 6-year graduation rate. It's about 80%. 85% is the sort of the peak. We need to do a lot more work on the 4-year graduation rate, right? And it really is about, are we really creating a learning environment where students thrive? That's number one. Are we providing the financial support that's so required in order for people not to feel distracted by the financial costs, but allows them to be students?
That's important. That's super, super important, especially for minority communities who may find it difficult to be able to meet the financial needs of receiving an education.
So, right now.
And then the third is we want our career staff to feel that they can grow into more responsible management roles and leadership roles. Because, UCI is like the second largest employer in Orange County. It has a $3.5 billion impact on the countywide economy. And so I think it's appropriate for us to be thinking about ways to enable, whether there are students or faculty or our staff, to really grow and thrive here at UCI. And then the final thing is we want to raise a lot of money. Right. And we want to raise a lot of money to support thriving. We need to support thriving scholarships. We need to support thriving fellowships for graduate students. We need to support thriving chairs for faculty, right? And so all those things and a lot more are some of the short, medium, and long-term goals that I really wake up every morning really motivated to go after.
That's great. That's really amazing. Yeah, and I think it plays into the idea that thriving is so much more than it's so much more than like an esoteric idea. It's financial, it's emotional, it's spiritual, it's so many things. And I think that plays into the diversity aspect of the office as well. Right. And we want to know, what are some of the things that you're already proud of that you accomplished thus far? You just listed your goals, but
well, I mean, first and foremost, and I'm going to work backwards. First and foremost, launching Black Thriving. Yeah. Because it's unprecedented. No other university in the country has as an ambitious and far-reaching initiative. And so I like the fact that we're leading higher education from Orange County. Right. I think the other thing, pride points, I would say, have to do with becoming a federally designated Hispanic serving institution, an Asian American, Native American serving institution. And partly for all of these initiatives, when the University of California was founded in 1868, they weren't thinking about these communities, okay? And so in some sense, we're really transforming a university, but also the idea of the university and who it serves. So that means a lot to me. Right. I think every time I meet a new Black student, and especially a Black student who's been admitted and who has choices, I want to persuade them to come here. But even if they don't, I want them to thrive wherever they land. And I guess the other, there's just two other items that I want to bring. One is that our Black staff, they play such an important role in the success of this university. Right. And it's true for all of our staff. They play an indispensable role. Right? Stuff doesn't happen by himself, right? And then the other thing I want to mention is our Black faculty. So last year we hired a record number of Black faculty, 13 in 1 year, representing many programs across the campus. And it's incredibly powerful because to hire a faculty member is appointing someone who has demonstrated the capacity to shape the future. Right. And I think it's powerful to know that Black people have, are, and will shape the future as faculty at the University of California, Irvine.
Right. It's so, I almost got chills when you said that, because it's just, I, as a Black student, know how impactful these Black professors have been on my experience as an undergraduate. So I did not know that 13 Black professors were hired, but that makes me so happy. You know, I know Tatum and I will be graduating this year, but it makes me so happy that I can know that there'll be more Black representation at UCI. So that's awesome.
Well, just to let you know that the new dean of the Paul Barrage School of Business
is African American.
Is Professor Ian Williamson, and he's the first in the history of the School of Business. But also remember this: he's the first African American dean of any School of Business in the University of California.
Wow.
There has never been one at the Berkeley School at Haas. There's never been one at the Anderson School at UCLA, at the Rady School at UC San Diego. And so that's just one example.
That's incredible. Yeah. When I heard about that, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's like, it's truly historical.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I guess to conclude everything, we wanted to end with asking you a question about the welcome table. So now we want to announce that we officially fall under you guys, like the Office of Inclusive Excellence.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're going to be interviewing all sorts of Black people. I'm super excited. I'm really excited to be talking to not just UCI Humanities, but everybody, right?
Yeah.
Why do you think this type of storytelling, communicating face-to-face, getting to know Black people on a deeper level, why do you think that's important? And what do you hope we as a team, i.e. in the Welcome Table, accomplish?
I think there's a number of very positive, consequences that flow from you, Tatum, and Sydney creating this platform. First and foremost, you're creating a platform for voices, affirmative voices about struggle, voices about achievement that all too often don't get heard or aren't even invited to the table.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think second, it creates an opportunity for the great Anteater Nation. There's over 200,000 alums of UCI to listen and learn and to connect. And I think the third reason is that you're storytellers. I think we can and should do more to create, enable more storytelling
right.
among our Black students, and in particular, our Black women students.
Right.
Because I think in the wider world of communication, we still have a long way to go.
There's so much
right?
connection, storytelling. Exactly. Well, thank you for saying all those awesome things. Thank you so much. And I would concur with all three statements that you made. So thank you so much for this opportunity to speak with you. And we're going to get to work with you in the future. So we're really excited for this.
Yeah, we're so grateful. Thank you so much. And we're excited to be interviewing some of the lovely faculty members and staff members that you mentioned.
Right.
Yeah. We're ready.
Yeah, I think they're really going to be delighted to participate. And I'm going to be meeting with the Director's Circle of Communication Officers this month. And I'm going to be sure to let them know about the welcome table so that they have that on their agenda. And it's a great way for our academic schools and non-academic units to connect with talented Black people and other people with interesting stories to come to the table.
Mm-hmm. Right. I love how you say come to the table. I love that. I love it. It's awesome. Thank you so much. I'm so excited once again. And yeah, this has been an awesome conversation. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you guys so much for watching this interview of The Welcome Table. This has been Sydney
and Tatum.
And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.